Let me begin by saying, as I suspect you know, that I am not a great fan of unfettered free trade. I helped lead the effort when I was in the House against NAFTA and against permanent normal trade relations with China. I will never forget a visit that I made to the Macadillo area in Mexico, where I saw brand new factories and literally Mexican workers living in cardboard boxes. And the result, of course, was the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs, good-paying jobs in this country, transferring them to Mexico where people work for horrendous wages. That is the type of trade policy which I detest. But I want to...
All right, folks. Welcome back to the channel. Grab your coffee and buckle up, because we're diving into a Senate hearing that's got the left absolutely fired up. And let me tell you, I've got some thoughts. You've got Bernie Sanders, the self-proclaimed socialist, grilling President Trump's trade representative, Mr. Greer, over the president's decision to impose tariffs on Canada. We are going break this down piece by piece.
Move to an area to talk about the legal basis of what President Trump has done. President Trump said, Mr. Greer, that he had no choice in terms of Canada, and I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. He had no choice but to bypass Congress and to impose an emergency 25% tariff on Canada to stop, quote, the massive, end quote, amount of fentanyl and, quote, the millions and millions of undocumented immigrants coming from the northern border. Unfortunately, that's a lie. The truth is that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported just 43 pounds of fentanyl was seized at the Canadian border last year, representing just 0.2% of the total. Now, we could agree that 1 pound of fentanyl is too much. But if 0.2% constitutes an emergency, my guess is illegal drugs are coming in from every country in the world. And that gives the President of the United States incredible power to determine tariffs. Further, he said he talked about millions and millions of undocumented immigrants coming from Canada. In fact, last year there were 24,000 people, not millions and millions. First question, really, we can argue about tariffs, but why does the president have to lie all of the time in order to make his point?
So, Senator, I would just refute that when the president is talking about the nature of the emergency we have. I mean,
could you talk a little bit closer into the mic, please?
Certainly. Senator, I would just say, I think you need to look at what the president issued in terms of the order for the legal basis for what we're doing, right? I mean, the president very rightly hit on this issue of fentanyl migration coming from northern southern borders, and it's a real emergency.
Drugs are a real emergency. 0.2%. You can then argue illegal drugs come from every country in the world. If you declare that as an emergency, you're giving the President of the United States unbelievable power. Let me go on that point. Let me mention to you what you probably know. 7 Republicans have joined a number of Democrats on legislation reasserting Congress's ability to play an active role in trade and tariffs. That, on the Republican side, was led by Senator Grassley. And he said, and I quote, "For too long, Congress has delegated its clear authority to regulate interstate and foreign commerce to the executive branch, et cetera, et cetera." He wants to reassert Congress's constitutional role and ensure Congress has a voice in trade policy, end of quote. In the last 2 weeks, all we have seen is reports in the newspaper. Congress has not had 1 ounce of authority in determining tariff policy. Do you think Congress should be completely left out of the process? Or does the president have emergency power to do anything he wants with regard to tariffs?
Senator, my staff has had over 200 meetings with congressional offices in the past 2 months to consult. The president's been very transparent about what he wants to do on tariffs. Congress delegated the law to him to take this action.
Mr. Greer, you can have all the meetings you want. You and I had a nice meeting. But at the end of the day, the president did exactly what he wanted to do without any discussion, formal discussion with members of Congress. He could make recommendations to Congress, that's for sure. Do you really think that he has the power under an emergency degree to reorder the trade world, global trade policy, without any input from the United States Congress?
Sir, Congress gave him this law where if he determines a national emergency, he can take appropriate action to regulate imports. That's what he's done.
And you think it's a national emergency that 0.2% of fentanyl coming from Canada constitutes a national emergency?
Sir,
Do you?
The president has determined that
Do you?
Canada...
I'm asking you. You're
You're asking me about drug policy. So I agree with the president. If you have China and Canada and Mexico putting drugs into this country at different levels, then that's an emergency. We have to deal with it.
Look, we're not going to
can't sit
argue
around
about the
anymore,
danger of drugs. 0.2, 43 pounds of fentanyl. On that basis, the president can declare an emergency with any country on earth and take unlimited power. That's called authoritarianism. Okay? That's not what a democracy does. Do you have any concerns about all of that power going into the hands of the president?
Sir, Congress delegated this power to the president. He has to renew the emergency every year. He has to give reports to Congress. The Congress told him what he has to do to use this authority, and he's doing those things.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
First off, Bernie opens up with his usual anti-free trade shtick. Look, I get it. NAFTA and other deals have had their flaws, but Bernie conveniently ignores how free trade has benefited millions of Americans, created jobs, and strengthened our economy. Sure, we need to focus on fair trade, but Bernie's solution is always the same: more government control, more socialism, and less freedom for businesses. Sorry, Bernie, but that's not the American way. Now here's where Bernie really loses me. He's calling President Trump a liar for using his emergency powers to confront the crisis at our borders. Folks, let me ask you this. Does it matter whether it's 43 pounds of fentanyl or 43 tons? Even 1 pound of this deadly drug is too much. Fentanyl is killing Americans every single day. And let's not forget, it's not just Canada. Drugs are pouring in from Mexico, China, and other places, and President Trump was doing what he promised, protecting our country. The left can mock the numbers all they want, but the fact is we've got a crisis, and Trump was taking real action to address it. Authoritarianism? Really, Bernie? Last time I checked, Congress gave the president these emergency powers. Trump's just using the tools that Congress handed him. And let's be honest, if a Democrat president were doing this, Bernie would be cheering them on. What Bernie and the left don't want to admit is that Trump was standing up for American workers and American sovereignty. He wasn't afraid to ruffle some feathers to put America first. Now, Bernie brings up this bipartisan push to reassert Congress's role in trade. Look, I'm all for checks and balances, but Congress has had decades to fix trade policy and do something about China, Mexico, and other countries ripping us off. Have they done it? Number. So forgive me if I'm not shedding tears over Congress feeling left out. Trump got results, period. Unbelievable power? Bernie, give me a break. The president's job is to lead, and when there's an emergency, you don't sit around waiting for Congress to hold hearings and write reports. You act. And that's exactly what Trump did. He put America first, and that's why we elected him. If standing up to Canada, Mexico, and even China makes him authoritarian, then sign me up. Because I'll take a strong president defending this country any day over a Congress that just sits on its hands. At the end of the day, this isn't about Bernie Sanders or President Trump. It's about protecting American workers, stopping the flow of deadly drugs, and securing our borders. While the left wants to argue over numbers and play political games, President Trump was out there fighting for you and me. Don't let the socialist spin fool you. We need leaders willing to take bold action to protect this great nation. Thanks for watching, Patriots. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Stay strong, stay free, and God bless America.